Okay, welcome everybody to Chalice and Chains. My name is Sam, and we're back again with our fourth session of the Dark Age of Man role-playing game, Saints and Sinners Chronicle.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. This has been fantastic.
Yes, it
I'm
has
looking
been.
forward
I titled
to
this
it.
one
I'm looking
Battles and
forward to it.
Bastards, because this is going to be a crazy one.
Oh, you just gave it away. We know who the bastards are.
Well, maybe not. Depends who wins, right? History's written by the winners. So I'm very excited. If you're listening to this in podcast form, welcome. We will have this up hopefully sooner than later. And this will be an interesting session because this is going to kind of wrap up and conclude a lot of things, but we will see how this goes and whether there's an actual resolution or whether these characters will necessitate more time on screen, so to speak. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kind of give the setup for what these events are, and then our gentlemen here will introduce themselves and what their characters are doing, and perhaps what they've done in the time frame between Session 3 and Session 4. So, a month has passed, give or take, since the events in Northitch. The sightings of Bishop Aethelwold have ceased. The kingdoms of Ungland are afflicted by conflict. Father Falcone attempted to establish his influence in Dredgewater, but was rebuffed and settled once more in Howardtown, along with his protege brother Boethius. The Viking Danes in Ayerland, under the command of Ivar Silkbeard, have taken Doblun and are steadily gaining more and more control over the remaining clans, fyrds, whatever. So, and soon it is feared they will control the whole of Ayerland. They are no longer content with raiding. They are now conquerors. Northitch, concerned with the conflict to their north, has ignored Falcone in his efforts to the south. And with the remaining soldiers loyal to the king, as well as the loyalists in Queen Maryanne's court, they're mobilizing an army to prepare to retake Ayerland and restore the queen to her throne in Doblun. They do so without spiritual counsel or the guidance of a bishop or Justicar, though no lack of priests claim God is on their side and claim to, they're jockeying for position as the religious authority up there. Meanwhile, in the south, war has broken out among the fyrds. Howardtown, with the influence of Daedrin and Alderman Eric, are now under essentially the religious authority of Father Falcone through his right hand, Bishop Boethius. So Father Falcone has kind of taken he's there, but he's letting Boethius kind of be the one that enacts his commands. They have mobilized troops to attack Dredgetown and bring it under control of Howardtown to ensure the safety of the south should Northitch fail to quell the Danes and the Danes move south. The king of East Umberland in London has been informed. He's aware of what is going on here, but so far there has not been any action or missives or anything from him indicating if he will become, if he will get involved. And so Lord Washburn, the young Westweld Washburn, has now called his loyal men-at-arms and the aldermen to raise the fyrds, prepare to meet the traitors, those bastards of Howardtown, in battle. And it has been that they have mobilized, both armies have mobilized and have marched, and they have chosen a spot just beyond the River Dredge. Unfortunately, Westweld Washburn was not able to get his fyrds mobilized quickly enough to push further outside. So they're uncomfortably close. But he has chosen the field on which he will fight for control of his lands and his legacy, and it is on the battlefield that the representatives of the two sides are going to parlay. So that's the inciting incident, essentially, is that There will be representatives from both the army of Howardtown and of Dredgewater that, they're going to try to talk and negotiate before the battle, but people fear that it is a foregone conclusion. So, with that setup laid, why don't we start with Del? Del, your brother Boethius would be present. He would be there with the army, obviously. You are kind of there as both their spiritual counsel, but also in a bit of a leadership position, as these aldermen really need the backing of the church to justify their actions. So if you want, you can go ahead and describe kind of what you're doing right now, or if you wish to kind of give us a picture of what led you to this point, that's fine as well.
You're muted, Dale.
I'm at the front, but not the literal front. There is a covered wagon that my small contingent of monks with me that I have in my charge are behind me. I call for the military leader here. Mm-hmm. I can't quite recall his name.
Lord Eric. Nominally, I think he was the official Howardtown representative, if I remember correctly. So he would probably have the largest fjord represented here. And Daedrin has chosen to join him, even though I believe Daedrin was a Dredgewater County alderman. But
what I call Eric to adjourn with me momentarily as we're on the rise overlooking the appointed battle, and the troops are milling about as far as Dredgewater's retinue of men across the I peer out. I don't readily see where the young nobleman is, but I do look over my shoulder at the wagon, and I call to the monk behind me. Is his mother controlling herself? Is she
Meta?
awake?
I hate you even more right now, but also you're brilliant. The monk would look to you and say, yes, although she's taken sickly again, but she's not been raving as she was, and seems to be under some sort of control anyway.
No, this is good. This is good. I look for her son now. Tell her that we may need her momentarily, and I wait for Eric to return. Yeah, I see him coming up over the rise. He's on horseback, so I just wait his approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And he is approaching, but he's kind of at the same time sort of pumping up his troops, right, and kind of trying to get them ready, because they know that they're going to go out and parley. They expect that. I mean, that's how these men do business. This is, war is war, but it's it is a transaction-based thing, at least initially, right? They don't want to kill each other if they don't have to, but so he's not in any real hurry. That said, we're going to quickly shift as almost as a raven kind of flies by over the battlefield, and you would see the scene kind of shift to the army of Dredgetown. And to call it an army is really generous. There are some fighting men and some men at arms, commanded by Vidar Watt, of course. The king's war leader, or the lord's war leader. But the majority of the fyrds and the army is peasants. Armed with pitchforks, armed with some spears. Yeah, there are some archers, but there's also a small contingent of pagans who have joined, and they are more well armed and more experienced, because they either had been part of fighting men in the past under, what was his name? I can't remember the pagan's name in our previous campaign, but anyway, kept hearing the Lord Von Mort, right? Was he a pagan?
Mort.
Yeah, Von Mort.
No, he's not a pagan.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so either with the conflict with him or with the Danish incursions, they've had some experience. But when it, the scene kind of shifts, behind this small army to look beyond upon them and the battlefield, it does not look good for the men of Dredgewater. They are outnumbered. They are facing a much more disciplined and experienced force. But with that, you see off a little ways a large sort of tent, right? And the tent flaps open, and you will see Lord Westwell emerge with, in full armor, right? He's got his his father's sword, on his, belt, and he's got his wolf banner, around him. And so, and he looks determined, and he followed quickly by young Henry, who has taken over the spiritual guidance of that was left with the absence of Bishop Aethelwold. And Westwell starts to, as he comes out, it's another beautiful day. I mean, barely a cloud in the sky. It's early summer at this point, so this is particularly troubling because a lot of these, the men of the fjord, part of the reason it took so long for them to show up was because they needed a lot of convincing and prodding to leave their farms in prime farming season. But they are here, and they look worried. And so, like, anybody who would observe can tell that the Lord Washburn is troubled. He's trying to figure out how he's going to muster his troops. And Jason, I want to ask you, did Janus of London return to Dredgetown, and is he within this rabble, this army, or what would Janus have been doing?
Yeah, Janus would have traveled back to London right after with the merchant caravan. There he would have made much changes in his life, but he would have continued his business, having now been made a believer, a follower of Saint Aethelwold, he refers to him. He would have approached the church during this month. He would have begun to pay his tithings, and then he would have voluntarily, once he saw his business in order, mounted up, and he would have voluntarily ridden back to Dredgewater to pay his crime, the Wygild. And he would have also hunted down the family of the peasant Yami killed in the skirmish, and would have gladly paid a Wygild for it. Also, he would have hunted down Henry, because he knows Henry is, for him, Henry's the closest thing to Aethelwold before he vanished. So he knows Henry would have been his right-hand man. So following out of the tent, hot on the heels of Washburn, would be Janus, with a wool cloak, very much changed, beard, much healthier looking, a foot shorter than Washburn, and hot on the heels behind Henry, and you would hear Janus come out as they come out of the tent. But you have my bank, Lord Washburn. Let me make an offer to Von Mort. He is a mercenary. I can pay to field von Mort and his men against Howardtown's usurpers. I beg you to let me buy von Mort.
Interesting. Okay. I like it. Let's make a dice roll. Because I think that'll be fun. Why don't you do either prestige or luck? You could choose either.
My prestige is +2, so I will do that.
Okay. And let me know what you get.
My purse is +3, so I definitely have the negotiating power.
The means to do so. Yeah. This is more convincing, Lord.
Sure, this is, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, here we go. I get, 2 + 2, 4 is my roll.
Okay. So he turns to you, and he's got almost not a defeated look, but the look of a man who believes that he's in a trap and he can't figure out how to get out of it. And he says, if only we had the time, but he motions to the army, and he says, they are determined to fight, and so here we must meet them. However, let us see what they say. Perhaps your purse may come in handy yet, although, and he'll say this, as my advisor in trade, I would not have you face this burden on your own with your own coin. Dredgetown will, of course, back you if we find a solution that for which coin will be the answer. I fear it will not, though. And
I think you are wrong to not move quickly to take von Mort's aid. This is a chance for your family to make amends with von Mort, but I see. I honor your wishes, young lord.
And he does say, I appreciate your counsel, and had I understood the gravity and believed that the aldermen would do as they have done, I might have taken heed of your advice sooner, but unfortunately it seems too late now. I mean, I don't see this resolving. However, if we can delay, perhaps we might be able to bring him on, but you must understand that von Mort, even as a mercenary, will exact a price much higher than just coin. I fear we may be dealing, with the devil no matter what we decide. And at that, I think Henry kind of inserts himself, and he says, well, perhaps it is best that we pray. We pray to the Lord and ask for his guidance, his divine guidance here. And I'm sure that he will reveal what needs to be done. And of course, Lord Washburn is very wont to do that. He's become much more religious as of late. And so he would nod and he would say, yes, let us do so. And then he would look to you, Janus, and he would say, would you join us in this prayer?
Of course. And that's fairly normal now for Janus.
Yeah.
As he has become
And so I think what would happen is Westweld would kneel in the sort of the grass and the dirt here, and Henry would remain standing so as to help project his voice, and he speaks louder than he might if it was just a private prayer with you guys, because he's attempting to influence the troops as well. And
Janus would take a knee behind Westweld.
Yeah.
In deference to his lordship, right?
Yeah, and you would see some of the soldiers, like, at this point, both armies are a little bit passive. They've been here for a while. it's known that there's not going to be fighting immediately, and so they've been kind of sitting, maybe cooking a little bit. So, but as they start to see their Lord come out, and then kneeling in prayer, some of them will kneel and join him. Others might grumble. You see the pagans kind of not sure what to do. Some of them do actually kneel. Some of them may pull out their talismans, right? Maybe it's to Thor or to one of the Mediterranean gods. But regardless, it seems that the Holy Spirit is showing itself here. And Henry, speaking in the common tongue of the land, Lord, we beseech you, give us a sign of, what we should do today. Protect us, give us your heavenly protection and bless us with, our divine retribution, for, we are your most holy servants. You bless the Washburn name and, in this army on the battlefield. And what's interesting is, as this happens, you start to hear, and actually, Janus, I think you would feel it more than hear it at first. It's almost as if there is like an electricity in the air. It feels very charged. And I think the army starts stirring a little bit. They start to feel it as well. And Henry is he's starting to get going, right? His prayers are, he's been good at this. He was trained well. And he's taken his job seriously, and the people really respect him. And so, you're starting to get some cheers, and people are, whatever. And this charged feeling just is stronger and stronger and stronger. And then out of a clear, bright sky, this just single crack and lightning seems to strike the ground, not too far. It's all in between the two armies. And it's blinding for a minute, and it stops. Everybody is kind of either hushed or they're, this was a shocking scene. Boethius, you would of course see this. Your army sees this as well, and as everybody's kind of, they got that light blindness for a minute, right? And they got, all the dots in front of their eyes, and as your vision starts to kind of clear a little bit, you see on the ground where the lightning bolt struck, there is a figure on the ground. It's difficult to see right now because you can't tell if it's because maybe the area is still aglow with that lightning, or your vision is still kind of influenced by the lightning. But it's almost as if there's this glow just emanating, but this figure seems almost hunched over, as if he was landed on his knees, right? And this is where random seeds are fun. I did not expect this, but and so as he stands, this figure starts to stand up, and the sun is gleaming off this armor that just seems to radiate the light all around. And you see, as what you think is a cloak at first looks like it kind of emerges right out, and you see these giant white wings from the back of this figure. On their head is this helmet that obscures the face, but seems to be, again, just glowing, and this figure stands up, and in their hand is a gigantic sword. I mean, and this figure is larger probably than any you've seen. This is a good 7-8 feet tall, just towers over everything, except for perhaps there were rumors that there was a giant that had, or a ogre or troll or something that had plagued Dredgetown. So some people in the opposing army started, and Janus, you would have known, it's the giant, he's back. But only a few who would have witnessed that. Everyone else is just completely dumbfounded by this. And as this figure starts, again, he's standing up, he's holding this sword in his hand, and Brother Henry lets out this almost like a gasp, right? And he says, "My lord, look, God has answered us. He has sent us an avenging angel. And to fight, clearly, our side will be victorious, right? And so obviously Westweld is hoping that that's true. That would be very nice if that were true. But so far, this figure hasn't done anything. It hasn't moved. And I want to jump back to Boethius because Boethius, your army and your people would have seen this. Daedrin would have, or not Daedrin, Eric would have gotten to you just about when this lightning just cracked down. And so everybody is seeing this, and I mean, it looks like an angel came down from heaven, right? So they're looking to you, kind of what's going on here. But the army is wondering: is this a good sign? Is this a bad sign? How do you react to this situation?
Well, yeah, I mean, when it first happens, I glance at it, but as you know, I've been plagued by visions recently until I noticed that everybody else is. I half distractedly reach back and point to the monk and snap my fingers. The Lord is with us. Bring my donkey about. There's one tied to the rear of the wagon, and the lady, set her upon it. And and then I turn my attention back to the smoldering, the scarred earth where this figure, and then I sweep my head across and notice that everyone is gazed toward that way. Even Eric is looking in that direction, and I reach up and grab the horses. His rein, and tug it a little bit to get Avery's attention, and I'll focus in on him and glance that way again. The Lord is with us. And I turn back, holding his gaze to let him know that this is proof.
Yeah,
hey, I'm still unsure because is it a mass? Some saying, but I look around and it seems that the queen, the noble lady, is being carted around, and whenever they pull up to me, I will mount the beast too behind her.
Okay.
And I'll take my cross pendant out and slide it down and position it near her side and whisper in her ear, "My lady, look yonder. This is the Lord's army." And then I'll wait for her response to see if she's seeing what seemingly everybody else sees. The Lord has deemed it so. You must tell your son to not stand against the Lord. Ooh. And then I'll nudge the.
I'm going to need a roll here.
But
I am trying to just. Okay, so I would say you could do either prestige or spirit, depending on what makes sense, because you're kind of both appealing to her from a spiritual sense, knowing she's a spiritual lady, but also, acting with the authority of the church with your prestige. So yeah, go ahead and roll that for me.
It's one either way.
Yeah.
So it's 4.
4. Okay. Well, that, even with the lower difficulty, is still not enough to completely convince her. And she looks back and she kind of scoffs and she's like, I knew my son was a fool for allowing those pagans to infect our land, but I thought for sure Howardtown would represent the religious authority that knew what to do, and yet it's that fool Falcone again seems to be here, and here we are met on a field of battle. But I don't
when
see
she says
sign.
Fool, I dig in a little bit, but keep going.
Yeah, I don't see that angel has that, because she thinks it's an angel. She's fully believing of that. God has shown a sign, but was it for us or was it for my son? I do not yet know which one is God's army.
Watch your mouth. Falcone is a good man. He was wronged by your people, by your husband, and now by your son. And are you saying that you wish to join them in this mockery of his grace? And I'll squeeze a little bit tighter, and we shall see if your son sacrifices you. On the cross of their iniquity. And then I'll move the donkey forward or nudge it forward and try to get some momentum and going forward. And Eric, we shall parlay with the young noble. Do not worry. God is on our side.
So, yes, you can absolutely do that. You kind of got the impression, especially when you said, do you wish to essentially join your son? She stiffened. You can tell she does not favor her son. She really doesn't. Because you've maybe spoken to her in the past, she feels betrayed. She was essentially like, removed from the manse and, they didn't quite put her into a convent, but they almost did, or they did, but she had a little bit more influence in Howardtown, but she was told you're not welcome here. And so she's mad at her son. But she didn't take too kindly to when what's his name? Falcone came back, because he was supposed to be her man in Howardtown and he failed her. So there's a lot of bitterness, but you don't get the impression that she is particularly wants to join her son. So,
she's on the precipice.
Yeah. Well,
so she needs to make a decision.
she
needs to. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So you start to proceed out towards the other army, and as you do so, Lord Eric is coming with you on his horse, right? And Daedrin, of course, is like, oh, you do not leave without me. I'm representative here too, and so he'll go up. But what starts to happen is, as you don't make it very far before the horses and the donkeys, they start to get skittish and they start to falter a little bit, and no matter how much you try, they're kind of dancing around. They do not want to approach, because that figure is in the middle of the battlefield, right? And at this point it's just standing there. But you also, because they are unable to move the full way, they're skittish, they're dancing around, you have to control them. It does give you time though to see the other army, and they're abuzz, right? They are there because they see you guys coming out. So now they're like, oh, we got to go, right? And so you will see the Lord Westweld mount his horse, and next to him you will see the great Vidar Watt, right, with a gigantic mace in his hand, right, his battle leader, and then Henry will be walking beside the horse, looking just small and not feeble, but a major contrast, and yet also portraying this strength that you would not expect from such a young man. But as they start to move out, the clear day just all of us, rather suddenly, not instantly, but the sky starts to darken, and it starts to darken quickly, and both sides look up, right? And as they do so, it's not clouds rolling in, but it is a huge flock of dark black birds just flying in, maybe ravens, crows, all of these if there
Yeah.
were, the
Murder.
pagans would start to see this as a sign, as an omen. And
At that, I will stop. I'll pull short as the horses, they are scared.
yeah.
Eric, tend to the woman. I shall go speak with our heavenly guardian, and I'll slip off the donkey and give the reins to him, stand pat, and I will, turning and looking over both shoulders to make sure that all eyes are upon me.
Mm-hmm.
I will walk, head held high, and start chanting and hold my my holy symbol up in front of me as I walk, and I will start, chanting louder and louder as I walk
Mm-hmm.
toward this being.
Sure. What are you chanting?
I'm chanting praises to the Lord,
Uh-huh.
and I'll intermix that with His protection,
Mm-hmm.
and the Lord's arm, and how it's justly right that He will send His angels to protect
Mm-hmm.
the just against the unjust,
Mm-hmm.
which it'll mainly be focused in that capacity as I walk forward, and looking at the array of the rabble of
Mm-hmm.
Dredgetown before me, and then I'll say, they must not stand against the Lord's army. You must repent, and then I'll start calling out for repentance from Dredgetown, and to change their ways before horrible retribution will be laid upon them.
Sure.
And I'll reference toward this divine being as I'm walking, and almost walking, as I'm showcasing the being, and then as its intermediary, to me, like I'm walking up and telling the other army,
Mm-hmm.
this is our, protector. The Lord has deemed it so, and you do not want to stand. You've already you've bore witness to what the Lord has done for us, and He's given you a second. The Lord's grace has given you a second chance. Either repent now and turn from your ways, and and whatnot, and eliminate the pagan and those Christians gone wrong amongst you before it is too late. That's what I'll call out for the other
Sure.
army. Anyway, I'm doing that.
Yeah. So again, make a either spirit or prestige roll for me.
That's 4 again.
Okay. Let me see. Okay. So you see that your words have an effect. But it almost, you feel like you were on a precipice, like it almost worked, but the army facing
Henry
you
countering
seems to be, yes, exactly. You can tell that he is speaking. Westweld is speaking. This figure in the middle has not turned yet to either side. It's basically like just standing there. He's not holding his sword up. In fact, the sword is kind of hilt down in the ground, and he's just sort of leaning on it. But I mean, the sword is probably the size of a man. Like it's huge, and so it strikes quite an intimidating figure. But yes, you continue, and as you are continuing forward, the Lord Washburn's mother starts to get really agitated. She starts feeling like she's like I feel like My skin is on fire. She's having a really hard time here. She starts to physically, like, she's getting nauseous. She is
I'll sweep around and
whatever,
and focus and look yonder. Even though I bore her on the back of the noble donkey, she burns after giving birth to your lord, who will not turn. Look at him. Witness him. He still holds fast. He tries to hold on to the belief that he has betrayed, and he is betraying now. And your detriment, your own detriment. Look how she burns and twists and writhes for his sins.
And as you say that, she's literally about to pitch herself off of the donkey, not on purpose, but like she's writhing so much. Are you going to try to stop her from doing that and hold her in the saddle, or are you going to let her kind of...
No, she's back up there. I've walked closer. So I told Arig to mind her and stand pat.
Oh, okay. So he's doing everything he can to kind of, stabilize. Because
it's theatrical to me, so I'm letting it play out, just have its effect.
We shift again over to the other side as this huge flock of ravens and blackbirds and whatever is almost like circling the battlefield. And in fact, it's not just ravens, it's also carrion eaters. Like it's almost as if they know there's going to be carnage here and they're ready. So it is a host of foul creatures, and it is darkening the mood of the army. And Janus, you're witnessing this, right? You're seeing this whole thing. You've seen the Lord Washburn and his retinue and whatever go out, and this figure is still standing there, currently not doing anything. How are you reacting to the situation, or what's going through Janus's mind as you're witnessing all of this? Because this is
dumbfounded, but not surprised, as I've been the recipient of a miracle.
Yeah.
So I'm not. I'm dumbfounded, but I'm actually not in disbelief. Right? It's. I will wave over one of my entourage, and tell them to. This is an ill omen. This is. And I just say this in passing to one of my entourage. This is an ill omen. It is as if the Lord himself is conflicted in the realities of this conflict. But nevertheless, I need you to ride hard to Von Mort and give him my offer and tell him to ride fast with as many of his men as he can, and he will be paid upon a successful day here in the field. I know Lord Washburn was against it, but we must do more. As I've seen their army, I've seen this thing, I've seen this flock of birds.
Yeah.
I have decided I must do something.
Yep.
To help this side, and I send him on his way to do so.
Make a luck roll for me, if you will.
Okay, +1.
Yep.
9 total.
Okay. So he would indicate to you, of course, he would need some coin to seal the deal, right? And I.
Oh no! I'll pay Von Mort upon. I would pay him upon the success on the field. But yeah, I would give him a few silver. Yeah. But I'm not. Yeah, I wouldn't send what he needs for this. He would just murder this guy for the coin.
No, yeah. So that's fine. You feel like this guy is one of your more sort of charismatic retinue. He'll probably be able to. You have confidence.
Yeah, I mean he's probably like a 16-year-old kid that I pay a pittance to from the streets of Dredgewater. Right. Not peasant, just some peasant kid that I have run errands for me. Right.
Yeah, he's like he's like the street thief Aladdin, right? Very charismatic.
Yeah, Yami would take advantage of everybody seeing this lightning strike, and Yami would stand, stripped to the waist, just as in shackles, as he stands beaten. He has been scarred pretty bad. He is among the baggage handlers of the Howardtown army, as they found him and conscripted him into the fyrd. And he takes advantage of this, everybody's attention upon this scene, to begin to back away from the camp, trying to grab up a sword or a pick or something, as he's trying to slink out of this camp.
Okay. Make a luck roll for me, if you will. Please and thank you.
Wait, I don't know what his luck is. I got an 8, but his luck is 0, so 8.
Okay. Okay. So in the commotion, everybody, he's kind of gauged the situation correctly, right? Everybody's focused on what is happening in front of them, even those that probably should be paying attention to what's going on in camp. And so, yes, he manages to kind of back his way out of the army. And I don't know that he would necessarily be able to find a sword or anything, but there have been barrels that were housing spears of varying lengths, and maybe some pitchforks or some reaping hooks or whatever, just the some extra armaments in case the rabble loses theirs, which they sometimes do. What is going on with my camera? Sorry. And so yes, he would be able to grab like a spear or something like that. Now, did you say he is in shackles? Or he
would be. Yeah. Well, I mean, he's not so shackled he can't do the labor that they're making him build tents, carry stuff.
Sure.
So he's in binds, but he obviously would be free to move around.
Sure.
But probably couldn't run, so to speak, or right. Yeah.
And so I think he manages to grab a spear out of the barrel, and he's holding it in his hands, perhaps feeling a little bit more less of a slave, less of a good Lord, sorry. That is really distracting. I don't know what is happening with my camera.
I'm not seeing much on my side.
Oh,
so
that's
it must
good. Mine,
it must be more on your side.
Maybe it's okay. Let me no, not space. Let's do the beach. No, that's weird. Let's do these lights. Okay. Hopefully this will help. So, as that happens, Janus would hear this, almost as if like someone right next to you is speaking. And it says, "Now is when your faith will be tested the most, and how you show or profess your faith will have a great impact upon your life."
To Janus hears this.
You hear it. Yep. As you're looking around. Right. Yeah. Well, maybe. I don't know. You look around, and it doesn't seem like anybody was like looking at you or actively speaking to you.
Right. Janus at that would look about as if somebody might have said it.
Yeah.
And then I would kind of grab my sword. I mean, lay my hand on my sword so it doesn't bounce as I trot out to catch up to Washburn.
Yeah.
And I call to Henry. Henry, it is Saint Aethelwold we must cry out to. Do you not understand the dilemma? And I will begin to speak louder, trying to get Henry's attention. It is the great Saint Aethelwold who can save Dredgewater from this mess.
Interesting. Okay. Go ahead and make I would say make a spirit roll for me, if you will. And as
2 plus 2.
You got a +2?
Yeah, because I spent my repute last session on
spirit.
Spirit to add to it.
Okay.
4 plus 2, 6.
6. Okay. And so a really brief meta moment. This would be an example of using a word of power, I would say, because you are invoking the name of a holy saint in the context of this. So You know, by
Word
the
of power.
way,
Yes, it is. It
yeah,
is exactly. We've just never.
I did recall,
used
or I
it
did
that way.
record something.
Yes.
That I will post
Sweet.
up later. But anyway, so if anybody is interested, this is a good example of when a word of power would be used. But it kind of happened organically. So
invoking the name of a saint or a god or or a legacy of your family.
Yeah.
If you were a Viking, so to speak.
So what was your total? You said you got about a 6?
6 total.
6 total. Okay. So yes, Henry hears you, and I think he says yes, of course. And he falters for a minute as he's about to say the bit, and then he says, Saint Aethelwold is with us, and he stops. And it maybe Vidar and Washburn take a few more steps ahead before they realize that Henry has stopped, and he turns and he looks at his army, or at the army, and he says, Janus is right. The Lord has sent us a sign. He has sent that angel to judge who is worthy and who is not. But it is our faith that is tested. And then he seems almost infused with maybe the Holy Spirit, right? With this word, and it's just coming out, and it's very inspiring. And he says, when we were at our darkest moments, it was Aethelwold, the humble servant of the Lord, that produced a miracle and kept you from starving. It was, again, Aethelwold, when in our darkest hour, our most trusted religious leader forsook us, and it was through the faith and the holy righteousness of Aethelwold that we persevered. And now, again, we are in circumstances that would test any man's soul. And while our beloved Aethelwold is not with us, at least in body, he is here in spirit, and he will he will help us find victory today. And then you can see this has an effect. This has a big effect on the army. The morale is starting to improve. And Boethus, you can see this as well. You can't maybe fully make out the words, but you can see Brother Henry addressing his troops, and they seem like they're getting pumped. Like, more of them are standing, they're getting ready. Some of them start banging weapons on a shield or on the ground or on a whatever to make some noise. Like, you've seen this. They're getting their battle fury up. And so something is going on here.
Yeah. Whenever this happened, and the clamor kind of arrives over my voice is I was trying to speak all of this, negative account to them. But I stop at that moment and I kind of just go silent for a second. And then I turn around and look, and I give an eye to Eric, and I say, it is seen that they wish to follow their apostate master, who put himself before the Lord. And I'll turn around and point a broad thing, a broad finger across the whole of the face of the army, or the rabble rather. And I'll draw it across, and then I'll come back and I'll draw it across my neck. And then turn around and look at the giant of a, divine being. You will, they call for justice. You will have your way. The Lord commands it. And then I'll turn around on my heel, right, with a flourish of my cape, was a little bit more, I'm adorned more so than I was previously, right? And I'll start walking back to my donkey.
Okay.
And And just with the resolution that I have given, I've given them the truth and they've turned from it. So in fact, I'm turning from them, and I'm walking up there to grab it, and I'm looking at the commanders on either side of the donkey and the woman.
And you would see something moving behind this army of steel, as where everybody's just fixated on what's transpiring, and you would see popping out the bare-chested, beaten Yami as he launches a spear toward Alderman Daedrin among the entourage, who has conscripted him.
Yes.
And one of the men that was an enemy of Janus during the Wiccan, right?
Oh boy. Okay, I like it. Yeah. So give me a body roll for this combat.
So you may see it, but no one else yet has seen or paid attention to what's going on around them, right? You want to make a combat roll? You said?
Yeah. Go ahead and make a combat roll for me.
Okay. Yami is a combat 3, so +3. Is this spear poor?
No, I wouldn't say it's poor. It would be a regular spear.
So no bonus.
Or no penalty.
No bonus.
Yeah.
Okay. So +3.
Yeah.
9 + 3, 12.
12. Yeah. Okay. So. Okay, I think I'm gonna take on the description of this one, just because I have to roll something else in. But so you see as I think it would almost go in slow motion as Yami is like bringing his hand back to throw this spear, right? And as it leaves his hand, it almost looks as if it is like being propelled by these wings, right? Like this is like a divine moment that you're witnessing here, right? And it is heading straight for like the neck of Lord Daedrin. And Boethius, you're standing here powerless to stop it. I mean, you're not that close to him, but you see this happening and you recognize Yami, right? And perhaps you start almost to yell out, to cry out to Daedrin as the spear pierces him and forces him off his horse. And as that happens, the impact of the spear hitting him makes this thunderclap that seemingly out of nowhere, and you would know, and then you would hear like the screeching and the screaming of the birds as you see the birds start to rapidly disperse, and lightning is kind of right striking these birds, and you would see that although this figure in the middle of the battlefield, his sword is still planted in the ground, right? His head is now facing up, and almost as if like the holy light of God is like spewing out of his, out of his helmet, out of his eyes, out of his mouth, right? And it's these birds, right? And as Daedrin, again, you're still seeing it in slow motion. He falls, onto the ground. The birds fly off, and this figure picks up his sword and starts to hold it.
I'll scream that they've incurred the wrath of God. He's given them up to their own sins. And I'm screaming this as I'm watching a boy pivot off of his horse and hit the ground, and seeing all of this on. And then I'll point to Yami. The perpetrator is there. He drew first blood, and I'm just kind of screaming as I'm beginning to hurriedly race up toward the hill to get the donkey, to get it to safety.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So
I'll scream attack, to the.
Do you want? So are you asking? You want the army to attack who? Yami or the forces of Dredgewater?
No, I'm just saying he drew first blood, and if he's closer, obviously he gets swept away. But yeah, I'm telling in divine guidance toward Eric to attack. They've incurred divine retribution
So you're
by
using this moment. Okay.
this figure. Yeah,
Make,
to do that.
make a prestige roll for me, if you will. Yes.
Okay, 6 total.
Oh man, you guys. You know the best roll of the game so far was Yami. Isn't that funny? Okay. So yes,
It has been shit.
You see.
Well, +3 helps.
Oh yeah. Yami had he had some other
He had a critical hit.
things
in,
going on.
one session.
Yeah. Okay, so you're like, it's clear that Eric hears your words, right? And he's, but he hesitates because, one, of course, you were meant to go out and parlay first, not fight. But also, he's not totally convinced that the way that you're portraying the scene is what is actually happening. He doesn't seem to see it the same way that you do, or that's the impression you're getting. And so he's slow to call that. And at that, as he's
that's just going to raise my ire of his incompetence, and his dumbfoundedness. I'll spin it that way, as like, wake up, man. The time is now. Launch them. The Lord cannot wait. That kind of thing. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's what I'll be doing.
And as almost a contrast to that, Henry would have fallen to his knees, and he's basically like, prostrating himself on the ground. My Lord has shown us that, but his voice is carrying more than it should be. The voice, the Lord has shown us that, by our faith, he has cleared the darkness, and he has brought, the light back. And in fact, the birds have dispersed, and the sun, is there, and it's shining down. Right. And he said, it was our faith and the divine intervention of our most beloved Aethelwold that, has shown, and look, he'll stand at this point, and he points a finger directly at you, Boethus, because you're fairly visible at this point. He says, the apostate priest, he tries to rally his men, but God has taken one of their leaders, and he is, and now they hesitate. He calls for the attack, and yet they don't. Now is our time. God has favored us. It is time for attack. And Westwell, hearing this and seeing this, I think he will hold up his sword at that, right? And he says, for Dredgewater, for God, and for Aethelwold, and he puts, gives the charge sign. And I think at this point you will see, the army is going to start to charge before you guys do. Now, before we go back to Brother Boethus, I'm going to go back to Janus. So, Janus, you may not have witnessed Yami and what he did, but you now know kind of what was happening, because the army, the opposing army, is a bit split. Some of the guards are trying to wrestle this guy down, and I think you might catch a glimpse of him with his darker skin and his, perhaps he's got facial hair and hair that is unlike what you would normally see here. So you would recognize Yami in the enemy camp. But more importantly, you also see that Daedrin, who has proven himself to be a traitor, is dead at the hands of a non-Christian, no less.
Janus, all of this, I imagine, happens within seconds. I mean, this is like, and as Henry falls to the ground, continuing as the armies behind us roar and start coming, I will grab Henry up and pull him onto his feet. Your job is done, boy, and onto his feet. We must away. And I'll kind of hold him and duck down as the army rushes by us.
And
then I'll draw my sword and follow in behind. Right.
Okay. Okay,
but
yeah,
I wanted
yeah.
to make sure he wasn't trampled under the army. As he
No,
sprung
and in
across.
fact, they like the army gives. I mean, they don't trample him at all. You know, they were positioned well enough that they wouldn't trample him, but they even still, it's like the parting of the Red Sea. They part around Henry, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even
this is
certain
going.
Janus would have seen anything other than Daedrin fall from the horse.
Right.
And then I might see out of the corner of my eye a flash.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't. I don't know if I
Yeah.
would have even seen Yami at all.
Okay, you may not have.
I might
if
you
did, you
if
would
he's,
recognize
if he's
him.
yelling
but, yeah.
out in Arabic, I would certainly recognize Arabic, right? If he's
he probably
if
would
he's
have been,
yelling
but you may not hear it because
right,
of all the other
army,
commotion
right.
and everything. You would have at least seen a figure with no shirt being tackled by the army. Your army is now charging. The birds are gone, and you see for a moment, almost like supernaturally so, right? Your eyes lock on this figure in the middle of the battlefield that what everybody thought was an angel, right? And the angel was positioned like sort of sideways, so he wasn't favoring either side.
Right.
But he turns to the oncoming army, and as he turns, the sword seems to almost dematerialize, and this huge white-robed figure, or not white armored figure, becomes, to your eyes anyway, a normal size, looks like a man in robes, kind of tattered, although a halo is all around him, and it's almost as if your eyes like are locked onto this. You cannot, all your focus is on this, and you hear again this voice in your head that says, your faith has proven strong, and now I fear it is time. It is no longer time for faith, but for your strength, both of body and courage, to ensure that your Lord prevails this day. Mm-hmm. Go to him, Janus of London.
Mm-hmm. I will tell Henry, get to a safe place, and I will draw my sword and head toward, basically to flank to protect Washburn.
Yeah. And then that figure in the middle of the battlefield, your gaze unlocks and he disappears. He's gone.
Okay.
No flash of light, just all of a sudden gone.
Right.
And there is a remark, and for a moment, I think the armies might stagger a little bit, just like, whoa, what just happened here? And do I want to introduce that now? Yes, I do. Okay, and so I think at that Henry ignores you, and he's going in. He doesn't have a weapon on him, but he's brandishing his cross, his crucifix, up in the air, and he's again giving praise to the Lord and saying, hey, do this, do that, do that. Boethus, as you kind of turn, with that disgust for Daedrin and for this and for Eric and how they're clearly like their faith is not strong enough, right? And so it's causing the tide to turn. But you see two things. You see off in the distance behind your army. Because you were looking behind the army when Yami was there, right? And so you see these two figures. One is a robed figure brandishing, it looks like a staff or a walking stick, right? The other is in what almost looks to be like holy vestments or whatever, right? But there's this dark, like, shadowy tendrils all around, and then you see as the white figure gets closer and closer to this other figure, his robes seem to dematerialize into armor, right? And there's the big wings that come out, and his staff turns into the sword. And you see this other figure who looked like this, priest or bishop or somebody, right? Is same kind of thing. His vestments seem to dematerialize, and you see this almost black, like scaly carapace with these bat-like wings, and this it's like a curved blade, all with this, not even fire as much as like it just looks like this like purpley red shadow kind of emanating from it. And you can't help but notice that the figure, this dark malevolent figure, he's wearing the same, like he's got this like necklace or this adornment around him that Falcone had. But it actually doesn't seem anymore like it was a necklace. It's literally like scarred into his chest. It makes like a almost as if it was like carved into his chest, and it's glowing with this like red pulsing light. And so you're witnessing this as these two figures clash, right? And there's this like, you don't know if it's in your head or if it's for real, but there's this like just concussive force, right? Right, as their weapons come together. And then like you blink and the figures are gone, and you realize that your army is not ready to meet the assault of the oncoming army, but you should be able to beat them in theory if you can get them ready, because you guys have many more men.
Whenever I witness this, I
my camera went out.
It's okay. Whenever I witness, whenever I witness this, it does stop my onward rush to the rear of the. I believe at this time I would be approaching the donkey and see this, and it would cause me pause. I shake my head. I don't automatically, draw that connection. I'm as far as like the probability, if it does cross my mind, whether it can be stated I'm in denial or not, I'll look at it, or, why must you torment me? And I screamed that for a second, and then it disappears. And I'll stand there, mouth agape for a second, and then gather my senses and notice that everything is gone into almost battle mode with the horses coming around me. I'll reach up and grab the donkey and get back up on the horse. Now she's still on the.
So now that she's still on the donkey. Lord Eric had managed to keep her up there. She's not writhing and freaking out anymore.
I'm pulling her off the donkey and to the ground and lay with your bastard son. And she hits the ground, and I'll slip up onto the donkey.
Okay.
And turn around and scream, slay them all, and trample the whore underfoot. And then I'll kick it forward as I'm trying to make my way to the back, as I'm doing, broad streets. And I'll hold up the holy symbol and speak to those that I'm passing as I'm going back to the rear, that, they're doing God's work.
And as you hold up your holy symbol after saying all that, you can see this aura of that like reddish purple, almost like a shadowy light circling around it, right? And you would start to feel this this sense of there's power. You can feel power, but it also is scary. It's something that it doesn't feel right, but it will definitely feel powerful. And yes, as this happens, right, you can, the donkey can't really charge into battle so much. So you're more like kind of plodding along, but you can see the cavalry forming, and they do, one of the horses tramples right over, and then another, and then another.
I know I couldn't get much momentum with her on the donkey, so I'm trying to get as much as I can.
And then you would hear this voice, and again, you don't know if it's in your head, if it's near you, if it's next to you, but it basically says, it is time, brother, to take up the sword and to show the holy righteous vengeance of God, to slay those heathens, and you have the favor of God at this. And it's almost as if by divine right or whatever, the arrows start coming, right? The archers from the Dredgewater army are shooting, and one of the cavalrymen go down, and his sword drops to the ground. He had it in his hand, right? Drops to the ground, not very far in front of you. And again, you see that swirling kind of shadow or light or whatever it is around the sword.
Okay.
And again, you hear, pick it up, take it, and fulfill your destiny. We will rule the galaxy as father and son. No, just kidding.
No, I will pause a long moment and look at it.
Yeah.
As I canter around, I slightly slow the donkey.
Mm-hmm.
And I break my gaze away from it, and I tear away and keep going to the rear. Okay, I'll leave it on the ground.
Okay.
All right, and continue doing what I'm doing. Never underestimate my cowardice.
Yeah.
Or my self-preservation.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you make your way to the rear.
And I imagine Yami standing there with one dead soldier. He's got his chains wrapped around the neck of one dead soldier, right, and another dead soldier on the ground, and he's picking up his sword as he looks up and sees Boethus on his donkey coming out of the fray, right, toward Yami.
Yeah. And okay, we'll go into character with Yami for a minute. Yes, he does see this, but it doesn't look like Boethus on a donkey. It almost looks like this just, demonic force of battle riding in on a shadow. And I think, he would probably start to say something like, Allah protect me,
Right. I mean, he definitely at this would be pulling the sword up and backing away, praying to Allah. Yes.
Yeah, or the spear or whatever. Now he would be actually surrounded by a contingent of Howardtown soldiers because so he can't go very far.
No.
And as he's sort of looking around, they don't seem disturbed at all by this horrific figure coming at him. And so I think that, and we'll switch back to Janus in a minute here. The last thing he sees before Boethus starts to close the gap is he sees these figures, right? That I described before, this winged, black carapaced figure and the holy avenging angel fighting, right? They're fighting each other. And I think that he starts to see the angel is gaining ground. He's slowly forcing this malevolent figure back, hard fought step by hard fought step. And then to punctuate that, Janus, you would hear the sound of like a horn, like off to the east, I think. And as you kind of, look, everybody's gaze sort of goes over there. You'll see the battle standards of the Eastumbrians. So the king from London has sent troops, and presumably it is but we don't know what's going on. We don't know who they're going to side with, but they are, there's a third force in this battle at this point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Janus, again, fighting furiously in defense of Washburn.
Yeah.
Not on the attack, but on the defense. So as soldiers surround the horse and try to cut him down, I would be like his protector. And seeing that, I might yell up to Washburn, the king from the London approaches, as I fight furiously, these usurpers.
And I don't know, you would probably notice and be well aware that you are able to continue fighting. You can yell these words with force from your lungs. You're taking in air. You feel invigorated, even more so maybe than your age would normally allow. But whether it's the battle fury or your faith or whatever it is, you feel more healthy and hale than maybe you have in years. And as to respond to what you said, Lord Westweld says, "Oh, God be praised. He has sent." He has sent us a sign. He has sent us the means to our salvation, and the Howardtown soldiers at this point, they do start to some of them start to rout because they're not sure. They don't expect that the king's troops are going to side with them, because they're technically on the attack against a alderman that both have sworn allegiance to the king. So, the politics of the situation don't look good. And it's at that moment, I think, that so as the army starts to falter and back away, and the army of Dredgewater starts to press the advantage, right? It looks like it's going well. This figure comes out from behind the Howardtown army. They're still pretty far away, but it looks like it's armored, but he's got this great big like mace or something, and like a big, almost like a silver gilded cross in his other hand. And, he's wearing the vestments of Falcone. But you, Janus, would know he's not wearing a hood. He doesn't have a helmet. But he looks like he's got, horns piercing out of his head. You can see this like shadowy mist sort of behind him, and it if you didn't know any better, you would think it was forming the image of maybe bat wings or like the stories of those great serpents, right, that were slain,
And he's coming from where? Where do I see him?
He's coming behind the Howardtown army, as if he's coming to bolster his troops. And behind that, you can see these dark clouds rolling in, even behind him.
I will yell out to Henry, There, cast Saint Aethelwold's fury upon that, Henry, brother Henry, and I'll cry out for Saint Aethelwold as I point my sword in the direction of this this manifestation of
Sure.
Of evil, right?
Yeah. Give me a spirit roll, or
Okay.
or prestige if you wish, but
Spirit. This
Spirit,
for
yeah.
me would be definitely
Yeah.
calling upon Saint and
Yeah.
pointing brother Ethelwold's energies
Yep.
toward it.
yeah.
8 plus 2, 10 total.
Okay. So, as you do that, you point the sword at this figure, and almost as if you somehow directed this, you see this like little tendril of smoke or light or whatever come from the tip of your sword, and it starts in that direction, and as it gets further and further away, it starts to gain speed, and it almost looks like the tip of an arrow, right? And it goes and it gets closer and closer to this figure, and it starts to illuminate the figure, and then instead of striking, it kind of manifests in this big sort of explosion of light, and you witness this. It looks like that figure from before, with the wings and the big sword, and he comes up and he goes to swing his sword right at this figure, but the figure pulls the big the cross. He brings it up and blocks it, and as the sword hits the cross, you see the cross kind of sparkle and crackle with lightning, and then it's this like three-pronged, like almost like a trident.
Right.
And the thunderclouds behind this figure are loud, whatever. And the battle around you is it seems to be raging, but it's almost as if everybody's moving slowly. And you seem like the only one, you and those other figures, the two figures you're witnessing, are the only ones seeming to move in real time.
Okay.
But you see as that comes up, right? He blocks the sword of this angel or angelic figure, and that figure staggers for just a minute under the force of that block. And as that happens, you see Henry near you stagger as well in slow motion as one of the Howardtown soldiers kind of broke through and swing at him, and he lunges himself backwards to avoid the hit. He does avoid it, but he's now prone on the ground as this soldier is kind of looming over him, ready to strike.
Yeah, I'll spin my attention toward this soldier to stop him from striking Henry.
Okay.
So I would stick my sword out to block his sword. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And engage him in a sword fight.
Sure. Okay. Roll body for me.
Okay. 5 plus. I do not have. I think I have +1 body. No, I have a 0 body. Right, healed from -1. So.
Yep.
So
zero,
just 5 total.
What's
No
your weapon
modifier.
quality? Did you have?
No idea. Well, I have sword good.
Yeah.
That I started the game with. It's actually +1 combat. So actually
okay.
6.
Okay.
6 is my roll counting combat. Yeah.
Okay. Great. All right, we'll resolve that in a minute. So we're gonna shift as you go to engage and you go to put your sword up to block, right? And then you get the fade to black, and then it cuts back to Boethus.
Okay.
And you would be seeing the same scene that I described to Janus at this point. But you are now pretty convinced that these are two physical figures on the battlefield.
Well, yeah, I'm on the donkey, and my intent was to go back to the wagon, the covered wagon, and I'll say we do not fight battles with flesh, but those of the spirit. And then I'm kind of looking around at the wonderment and the engagement that's around me, right? Just taking my senses, but I do see that the covered wagon is there, and that's where I veered off. And when I pull up, I'll slide off the donkey and hand the reins to tie him quickly into the wagon, to the monk, and usher him in and go inside. And I know there is things that are happening, but the wagon is fairly close to the front where we started from.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll start disrobing. Brother, you must do the will of the Lord. And I'm taking my more affluent garb off.
Okay.
Remove your garb.
So you're getting naked?
Yeah, he needs to wear mine. I'll take my holy symbol off.
Mm-hmm.
Give guidance to the truth. I'll say this while I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Is he following suit?
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
He is.
Okay, so we're in the back, and I'm taking it off, and assuring him that this is for the Lord. Stand as I would upon the wagon, upon this war wagon of the Lord for the Lord, and encourage the troops. Encourage the troops. You will have my power. You will be. Do not worry about those that can take the body, but those that can take the soul. You will. Your soul will be forever in the Lord's arms. Should you fall, take heart. And I'm taking it off and giving it him, and I'm reaching and grabbing his and then putting it on. And
so you're basically taking off the trappings of the more affluent bishop, right? And going back into the kind of humble monk's robes, so to speak.
Yeah, and then I'll gesture out the front of the wagon for him to perch himself up there. Mm-hmm. Stand high and stand tall, and give the troops the Lord's word and what they need to do to conquer this this evil that has beset us. And I'll usher him at the front, and then when he steps out, I'll slip out the back.
Sure. Can you make a spirit roll for me to see how your words influence this young monk?
Okay, that is 11 with 12. Well, one is 12.
Okay. So your words seem to have the effect that you want on him, and he seems invigorated, and he seems positive about this. And so he climbs up onto the wagon and and he starts speaking out in a clear, loud voice. He's speaking in Latin, but he's the typical sort of Father, protect us, and send your righteous angels into battle and whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so so he does that, and it does seem to have an effect. The troops, the Howardtown troops, do start to rally, and you'll notice. You may not notice, but actually, we're going to cut back to Janus, and we're going to resolve his scene, and then there will be something else that'll happen. But Janus, you went ahead and you kind of put your sword in front to block the attack that was coming at Henry, and you do manage to sort of fend off the blade, but in the process, your blade kind of gets knocked out of your hand. Henry scrambles out of the way, and he's kind of there, and he's looking at you, and he's looking at this other figure, right? And he, for a moment, he is like, he's just waiting to see how this is going to resolve. But this other figure, he's still got his sword in his hand, and he looks to you, and he sneers, right? And he's like, it's been a long time since I've killed an old man. No, but the last time I killed one, he at least had a blade in his hand. And he definitely intends to kill you, but what do you want to do?
Well, I will make a mad dash. I will try to beat him to my sword.
Okay.
And defend myself.
Okay. And so I'm not going to make you roll because as you kind of dive for your sword, Henry like pushes it towards you or kind of maybe throws it towards you or whatever. And then Henry himself pulls out a dagger that you guys didn't know that he had there, but he's got this dagger in his belt. And he holds it and he's ready. He seems ready to defend himself if he needs to. But Henry has joined the battle at this point, ready to defend himself. But you also notice at that moment that the Lord Washburn he's been in his saddle this whole time. He's been fighting. He's been doing really well. But he starts to slump a little bit. And you can hear this like coughing and wheezing and like, and then he's like huddled over, like, oh, he's groaning in pain. You don't see any physical signs, but he's about to topple out of his saddle. Yeah. So I don't know if you want to try to get to him or if you want to try to deal with this because you figure if this soldier doesn't attack you, he's probably going to go for Henry.
Yeah. I'm gonna turn all of my energy onto the soldier and say, retort, as he said. It's been a long time since he's killed an old man. I'm gonna say, I'm not dead yet. As I swing mightily upon him. Sure. And tell Henry to Washburn he is failing. Yeah. So I'll yell out to Henry to go to Washburn. He's failing.
Mm-hmm. And he will. And so you're going to make an attack. You said against the soldier.
Attack the guard. Yep.
Yeah. Great.
Roll see my combat's +1. Okay. So here we go. It's a 2 + 1 3.
Wow. Okay. Even bolstered by your faith and even with your your newfound health, you still can't. You're not a professional soldier, and unfortunately you had the bad luck of coming up against one of the Howardtown troops that was a man-at-arms or whatever. And so again you try to attack and he just parries your blade aside. You don't drop it this time, but it's clear that you're outmatched. And he is at this point, he's kind of slow playing it. He's kind of taunting you, trying to get you to engage and maybe make a misstep, which he can then exploit.
Okay. Now I'm fatigued from that failed roll, right? So I would take a fatigue condition.
I don't. Yes, I think maybe you would because, with everything that you've had to do, jumping in and yeah.
So I've now got one wound. I'm fatigued.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll circle him, tired, and I will maybe divided as I keep one eye on Henry and what's happening with Lord Washburn. My energies are divided, and digging deep, I will whisper under my breath, Saint Aethelwold, it is for you that I will drive away these forces against your church. And kind of yell out, I'll whisper that under my breath as I draw all my energy, and I'll yell out as I run at him, both hands now on my sword, swinging crazily. I'm trying to overwhelm this soldier with all of my energies, right? Combat check. Yes.
Roll it, but keep it in your pocket for now. I'm going to shift quickly back to Boethus. Actually, no. Tell me the result, and then we'll
5. Total 5.
Total of 5. Okay.
Total of 5.
So we'll shift back, and Boethus, you see at this point that the Howardtown troops seem to have recovered and are now really on the offensive. And you're watching this battle happening between these two figures, right? And it just seems like this angelic figure or whatever that showed up earlier, he's doing everything he can to just block the to be on the defensive, right? It's it's this large sword and this trident just right, and he's batting it away, trying to do everything he can, but he's slowly giving ground as this figure in just this full-on rage, this full-on battle fury, is just like beating him down, and you can see every time he strikes this figure, that shadowy light just pulses and seems to like go more and more opaque, and then it almost looks as if it's forming into like armor or something. Not exactly, but it's becoming seemingly more and more solid, and so it seems as though that figure is winning. So you, in your head, you get, it's almost as if the angelic figure turns to you, and like the battle pauses or whatever, and you hear this figure speaking to you, and he says, "It is now time, brother, to choose whether you will be a man of faith or whether you will be a man of the one in league to the devil, who, you must make your choice now and follow, the guidance of your soul." And then almost as if like nothing happened, the battle goes back, right? And so how do you respond or react?
Yeah. I paused for a second, staggered, shifting around in the trampled mud. It's trying to be very stealthily and unseen, as it were.
Sure.
And so it's kind of taken me aback by having this giant look directly at me, and transfixed his gaze on me, and I the same to him. Mm-hmm. So it's a weirdly intimate moment inside of this chaos. Mm-hmm. that I stopped there, and the words. It's like my tongue is tied. The words are hard to fall off my lips. The comprehension. Mm-hmm. That's how I respond, and I look about myself, and I look down at my hands, and there seems to be blood on them, and I don't know if this from running past and pushing past people that I've heard it are. It's me. Yeah. And I look back up at the figure, and he's still being welled upon by this apparent demon. Mm-hmm. Now you said I saw the iconography of the bishop engraved into this.
Yeah, thing. So Falcone used to wear this sort of big, like almost gaudy sort of medal around his, and it's very iconic. You could instantly recognize it, and that same symbol is almost like burned or branded into the chest of this, demonic figure.
Why torture me, Lord? And I look at it, and tear my eyes away from the vistage, and look at the demon bearing down on him. And then it's weird. His face is all, serene as he's going through these administrations, as he's looking at me. But why torture me, Lord? What does the face look like?
You can't see the face, actually, because it's obscured by a helmet. But you do see the face of the other figure, that sort of demonic figure, right? And it's fully like demonic, like. But you hear he turns to you and he says, "Because the God is a God of torture. That is what he will do. No matter how much faith or good works you do, you will always come up short. You must destroy him. Help me destroy him."
Torture, and now I'll look at the. But it is and I grasp from my holy symbol, and it's gone. that realization that I've just taken it off, and I was grabbing for the sword, but the torture is the fire that makes us into sharpened steel for the Lord and his army. And I kind of gather myself up a little bit as I'm having this existential crisis conversation with these two, and I look and I say, it is you. And I hold up my finger and I'm trembling. You are the one that befouls the Lord's name and lies. And I stutter with the lie part because I've had, self-realization. I've thrown my share out, and so I'll start. I reach again for the holy symbol that's gone, and I start tearing and rending at this robe that I've put on. I'm not befitting a man of the cloth, and I hit my knees, and I start crying, and all of this is going around me as I'm looking up, and I'm tearing and rending.
As that happens, you will see, this whole time, right, he had kept just wailing and wailing with that sword and put the trident, right, and the angelic figure is backing back. He falls to his knees, and then you see as you rebuke this demonic figure, the angel surges back up, and he goes in for a big swipe with his thing, and the demonic figure kind of parries it with the trident, and his this forked tail comes around and kind of whips at the angel, and you see that it cuts a part of his robes, right, and it fall just this little patch of this angelic robe or whatever, or his cape or whatever it is, and it falls to the ground, right, and then you see though that the angel is starting to regain his ground, and so as you're there on the ground and you're ripping and tearing your robes, you see that robe, that little piece that got cut off of this angelic figure, right? And it's like your mind is just consumed by this. Like you feel like this is something important. But it looks all bloody and kind of like old. It doesn't look angelic and new like it did. Yeah.
Yeah, at this point, I'm sorry, Lord. I'm sorry, Lord. And I'm doing a full blown repentance right there when my eyes meet up, and I've torn this robe, inhumanly, and I'm bare up on top, and it just hangs around my waist into the mud, and I look at the cloth laying there, and immediately comes to mind of Aethelwold's cloth that I had been given, that I had rebuked, or And then I start crawling over there to it, if I could just touch it and pick up the garment.
As you start to crawl towards it, you feel this horrendous pain in your back, right? And with each sort of thing, it's almost as if a whip is just whipping you on the back. Now, are you going to continue towards that, trying to grab that?
That's what I'm saying. If I could just touch it, it's like my redemption.
Okay.
Touch the hem of his garment in a way,
Yeah, and so your fingertips are probably like mere centimeters from this thing, and the whip cracks again, and basically takes you down to you basically would have to crawl on your elbows at this point, and this demonic figure you can now see is standing above you, looking over you, and he says, "Look, you seek the treasures of him, and you endure this pain.
It is suffering that puts us through the fire, and we come clean and holy for him." And then I'm still crawling, and by this time I'm sure I'm shredded a little bit, my elbows and forearms, as well as Lord knows whatever is going on with my back, but it keeps buffeting me down where I would hit, and then I pick up, and I'm basically belly crawling right now to try to reach it. I'm trying to keep my body and mind in a good position.
Okay.
So to reach that benefit.
Yeah. Well, so you're at this moment now where, like, and whether it's instinct or whatever, if you choose not to reach out for that garment, all the pain will go away. Everything will be fine. You will be restored. But if you decide you do want to still reach for it, you have this feeling that your body will succumb to its injuries, and that you will no longer be the man that you currently are.
But this is a redemption moment to me. And even if I'm not into saving my body so much as soul right now. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I feel fully that this is my last breath and grasp at anything, and it's going to be that the Himmelite garment. You see what I'm saying? So I've got to do it.
So you grab it? Okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to roll for it. You grab it with the last of your strength, and as you do so,
I cry out. And,
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm saying I've been crying out, and the tears. Are flowing.
And so you do, and then you feel.
Gentlemen, 1 second. I'll be right back.
Sure.
Sorry, somebody's at the door.
Yeah, no worries. You feel this pain like you've never felt before, as and your sort of back arches and your stomach pushes further into the ground, and it feels almost as if your bones are breaking, and you realize that it was the trident of this demonic figure had gone into your back, and it's pinned you to the ground, and it's just pain. All it is pain. And then you start to I'm
tell you what, I'm crying and I scream out and I'm writhing.
Yeah.
And it's weird because the scream turns into a laugh.
Yeah.
And of joyous redemption, and the tears are flowing. So there's a transition point to where it was shock, but then sweet release.
Yeah.
With the realization I've got it in my hand, and I hold it up in front of me, in open palm, and look at it.
Yeah. And you can barely raise your head up off the ground. Your palm, you kind of barely bring it up. And I think as you feel the trident being removed from your back, and as it does so, you feel the last of your breath basically escape out with it. And
it lifts me up and I drop.
Yeah, and so you completely lose consciousness at that point. Now we will shift from Brother Boethus for a moment. I don't know if Jason can still hear us, so I'll give it more general. Oh, you can. Okay, so at this point, the army of Dredgewater they were being beaten back. They were losing. And then all of a sudden, as if, some renewed force, some renewed strength, some renewed vigor, right? Lord Westweld is nearly toppling from his saddle, and Henry comes to him, and Henry throws his dagger down on the ground, and he puts both of his hands up. And Henry's not that big, right? And so the Lord is a large dude, and he's got full armor on and everything. And Henry is straining, and he says, "My Lord, I cannot hold him on my own. Please grant me your strength, and grant your strength to Lord Aethelwold, or to Lord Westweld." And he kind of pushes him back up into the saddle. Westweld had dropped his sword, but he's sitting there in the saddle, and he's still got this grimace of pain on his face, but he says, "Henry, hand me my sword." And so Henry picks up his sword and he hands it up to here you are, my lord. And Westweld holds his sword up high above his head, and he says, "Men of Dredgewater, now is not our day to die. Now is our time to prove our faith." And and he like starts charging forward, and as if like he's like a spear point, he's charging on his horse, and the men of Dredgewater are just, of Howardtown are just like being parted, like it's crazy, right? And Vidar is right behind him swinging his huge mace, right? And you see some of the pagans and some of the other notable townsfolk of Dredgetown, their swords, spears, whatever, right there, it is like the mighty spear tip of God is just piercing through. And then finally, as the army breaks, you see Westweld has got his sword, and he comes with this mighty slash, right, and beheads this figure standing there. You can see the priestly vestments. You can see this big chain, around his neck. And it actually, as the head falls off the back and the body starts to tip forward, the chain falls to the ground with this big clatter, right? And as that happens, he does this thing, right? And his horse keeps charging, and then he falls out of his saddle right next to this monk or somebody. He's in monk's robes, but he's like bloodied, and just he looks like he's been through hell, and I think at this point, Boethus, Janus, you've witnessed all of this, and like you're witnessing a miracle here of some kind.
Right.
But Boethus, you at this point, everything had gone black, right? But now you see this figure, and this is clear. There's no obscurity. This is Aethelwold, and he says to you, it is, you have shown great faith in our Lord, and he would not have your new faith be denied to those that still need it. If you wish to return, by the grace of our Lord, we will make it happen. You're muted, by the way.
I open my eyes, blinking, and my focus in on him as he says this. And I slightly almost look around either side of him, and I look back again with realization. I say, how I would love to find relief, but there are a lot of things that I have of wrongs that I must set right for our Lord. And if there is breath in me, and while there is still breath in me, I shall endeavor to do just that. If given the opportunity. And then I weakly smile at him. There's a bit of sadness in my eyes, though I fight to forgive myself. And then I'll look up. If our Lord has, who am I to doubt him? Mm-hmm. And then my eyes rest back on Aethelwold. And another weak smile.
Yeah, and he places his hand on your back, and you don't feel any pain. In fact, you haven't for a little while as this whole conversation was going on. Yeah. And he says, remember, it is not for you to forgive yourself, for you can never forgive yourself of the sins that you commit. You can only beseech God and our Lord to wash you clean of those sins. For remember, it was by our Lord Jesus Christ's sacrifice that you were washed clean of those sins. But when you repent, God forgets that those sins were even committed. That is the glory. That is his divine power. If you remember that and approach him with honesty and with true faith, then his breath will flow through you always. And with that, you feel this, it's like almost as if like the breath was sucked out with that trident, and then it like, it's like forced back into you.
Whenever I'm on the ground, I'll go, and then startled and push myself up. I shall, I'm still crying. I shall pick up my cross and follow you, my Lord. And then I'm pushing off and pushing up out of the mud and trying to right myself, and stand, even though I can tell I'm a little worse for wear,
Yeah. Well, and
I'm surveying what's around me as I do this.
Well, and you notice that there is a large entourage around the prone figure near you. You haven't been able to push yourself up to your feet just yet. Although you don't feel necessarily that weakness, but more so that it's not your time to rise yet. And so you're kind of on your knees, right? And you're looking around, and you see the figure below you, and it is you recognize it as Lord Westweld, right? And you have him there, sort of prone, right? He's kind of rolled over onto his back, and he's got one hand like on his like his lower stomach or his lower abdomen. You don't see any cuts or anything. It doesn't look like he was touched in battle, so he must have something internally that is paining him. And his sword is on the ground, and you also notice your holy symbol right at your feet, right? And so here he is prone, and you know that if the Lord Washburn were to die, it would ultimately turn the tide of battle. Now, whether or not Boethus will even entertain that notion is up to you, but that is a situation that does exist. Well, and you can see Henry, his protege, running in towards him.
I give it, at first there's some discombobulation that I don't know if I've been transferred to their side or I'll look around and, as I said, gather my wits. And I'd left my my personal holy symbol with the monk, right? Yeah, but I look down and see the sword and see him laying there, and I'll say, Lord, as if I'm trying to fill the word, Lord Westweld, and I pick him up and turn him, and then I see him like you're saying, and then I glance the sword. And I'll pick the sword up and lift it in the air. Yeah. From my knees and stab it down into the ground. Yeah. And thus the hilt and pommel suffices as a cross. Yeah. And then I will start praying to the Lord for healing for Westweld. Yeah. To bring back and put healing not only to him, but the kingdom. And for its people, and I'll do that.
Yeah, and as you're doing that, Henry manages to come in, and at first he was going to push you away, but then he realizes what's happening, and with tears just streaming down his face, he's like, yes, thank you. But what he says is, so you guys are doing that. Janus,
whenever I see him, I was just going to say when he comes up and I'll notice him, and there could be a moment of like if he considers me friend or foe, but I'll just be outward and then like look down and gesture, right? And he could probably see my countenance has changed somewhat, and I can beckon him to join me in prayer over the young Lord, for his recovery, and then we will proceed to do that.
Yep. And so, you guys do. And Janus, you have finally sort of caught up and are here. And because, you've been in council with Lord Washburn for a little while now, right? He's given you kind of an official title. as kind of his advisor or his minister of trade or whatever. And
Mhm.
you know that he is afflicted by a malady that it just feels like it's ripping up his guts. Like he can't, he has to be very careful about what he eats. He can't partake
Mhm.
too much. And so as you see him like holding his abdomen and you don't see any obvious signs of distress or of wounds. You've been able to brew with some of the spices and the tea leaves and stuff that you've acquired. You've been able to brew a tonic for him that can kind of help at least temporarily ease his distress. So you suspect that he's probably got a real bad, flare up of whatever this is.
Okay.
But he seems like he is not in mortal danger, but boy, this one's really kicking his butt.
I won't interrupt. I'll allow both Henry and Boethus. However, I'll keep a sharp eye on Boethus. Maybe keep my sword point.
Yeah.
Inconspicuously pointed in his direction in case he's up to no good. Yeah. But I will allow Boethus and Henry to aid Washburn. I know that I can administer this tonic.
Yeah.
Once they've prayed or helped him.
Completed.
But I will look about the battlefield to see what the condition of our war is. Squinting and seeing whether they've been routed or whether we are losing or winning at the same time. Yeah.
So you look around and you're surveying the battlefield, and at this point the troops from London have made it to the battlefield, and they have basically the men of Howardtown subdued. They've their leaders have fallen. Lord Eric is still alive, but he seems like he's in in chains at this point. The captain of the troops from London has him at sword point. Like, so the men of Dredgetown are in good spirits, but they aren't rejoicing yet because their lord is still on the ground, and so they're nervous. They're not sure. And as you're surveying it, you see it's typical signs of battle, right? There are people battered, bruised, cut. There are people wailing and screaming on the ground, right? It's just a slaughterhouse. And then your eyes, as you're surveying this, you actually hear in a language that you're familiar with, you made it through, you lucky bastard. And you know this is in Arabic. And you look up and you see Yami there, no shirt, like covered in bruises and welts and scars and just more so even than he had before, right? He's scraggly, and one of his eyes is kind of closed shut, like it had been punched repeatedly. But he looks to you and he says, "Good to see you alive, my old friend."
Yes, Yami. And I'll smile. With that, I'll drive my sword in the ground and give Yami a hug. Yeah, and tell him it looks as though you have won the day for us. And I'll kind of point around the battlefield, typical of you, Yami, to have cleared the battlefield, to have cleared the combatants. And I will offer him a drink from my flask, my water flask, and I'll kind of nod toward his shackles. And it seems you've had to endure some
tribulations.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Says yes. Well, and he kind of holds up his shackled hands and he says, "This, I will tell you, is a lot easier to deal with than that hug you just gave me. When did you become so strong?"
That is, we can thank Saint Aethelwold for my improved condition, Yami. Yes.
And he would probably say, like, praise be to Allah or whatever. And then he would say, well, if you can help me out of these shackles, perhaps we can perhaps I can ease my pains with a different kind of healing. And he's looking for a drink or something.
Sure.
Maybe.
And I will take up my sword and begin the process of trying to cut the shackles free. Yeah.
And so you'll be able to cut his hands off, because that's how you have to. No, just kidding. You manage with. There's a wagon that they had kind of used to keep the slaves and whatever, and there's probably it was like a foreman or whatever that was in charge of. He's dead on the ground. He's got a key ring, so you're able to do that.
We'll get the shackles off.
Yeah, and a couple minutes later, after that, the Lord Westwell is able to stand, right? And he's still clearly in pain, and he's kind of got his sword, pushed into the ground, using it almost like a crutch. And he looks, and the captain from the troops in London, kind of comes up and gives him a quick salute, right? And he says, "My lord, the King of Eastumberland is happy to see that you've prevailed, and we only wish that we could have gotten here sooner to assist you. These cowardly men of Howardtown, well, treason will be dealt with most harshly." And he says, "What would you like me to do with him?" And he points at Lord Eric, and he says, "Will it be the noose, or do we give him the sword?" And Westwell kind of walks over, sort of hobbles over, right? Pulls his sword, whatever. At one point, I think Henry comes in and tries to like bolster him, and he kind of shrugs him off, and he puts his sword back in his belt. Actually, no, he doesn't. He's got his sword in his hand, and he manages to walk unaided over to Eric, and Eric looks up at him with certainly with defiance, but also with a bit of contrition. And he looks to him and he says, "You fought well, my lord. Very well. It seems God truly did favor you." And he says, "If you have any mercy, I would ask for a quick death." And Aethelwold, I keep calling him Aethelwold, sorry. Westweld has his sword, and he kind of brings it up, and he tilts it so that the sword point is down, right? And then Eric is holding his head down, ready to receive his punishment, and Westwell brings the sword down and slams it into its scabbard, and then he goes over to Eric, and he sort of pulls him up with as much strength as he can muster, and he looks him in the eye, and he says, "We have had too much division. We've had too much hatred. It almost cost my family everything. And if I am to be the Lord's favored," and he doesn't look like he totally believes that, "then I must show the forgiveness that the Lord commands of us, and that our great Bishop Aethelwold had shown us to be the way. So I will not seek your death, Lord Eric, but you will be banished from the lands of Dredgewater and of Howard County. You will no longer, your estates and your wealth will be given to the church, and you will be allowed to leave with your family and with your sword, and that is it. And if you show your face again in Dredgewater, then you will face the retribution of the Lord." And he at that, he kind of he leans down and he's wincing hard. I mean, because as he's leaning down, he's contracting his abdomen. It really hurts. But he picks up Eric's sword and he hands it to him, and he says, "Just remember, the Lord is merciful, but only the Lord has mercy without end. I'm still a man." And with that, he turns. And there's a couple more of the aldermen of Howardtown that have been kind of subdued, and he says, he goes to a few of them and he says, "Now, I offer you a similar choice. You swear your fealty and your fyrds to me. We will encompass Howardtown into the larger and Howard County into my lands, and you will be able to keep your lands, maintain your status, but you will swear your oaths and your fealty to me. Or you can meet your maker and see if you've earned your way into heaven. What's your choice?" And they unanimously decide that they would like to stay alive, and so they will. They swear their fealty to him, and the scene kind of wraps up where there's forgiveness, and they allow the men of Howardtown to get up, and they although it's uneasy, they try to, they put down their arms. They're trying to have a meal, and at one point, I think the Lord Westweld would look to you, Janus, and he would say, I trust in the grace of our Lord, and that suffering is by his divine will, but sometimes it's too much to ask a man to suffer. Do you have any of those herbs? Maybe the tea left that you could brew for me?
Yes, and as I mix it and brew it, I will take the opportunity as I present it to him, having his ear and his focus, to lean down and whisper in his ear, but we must capture Falcone.
And he says, There's no capturing him unless we wish to descend into the depths of hell and drag him out. He's dead. Look,
he is.
He points. Yeah.
Okay. So
and at this
Janus
point,
kind of smiles with that.
Yeah.
Forgive me, Saint Aethelwold, that my heart somewhat rejoices at the death of Falcone. As I look at Washburn. Well, that is good news, to some degree.
Yes, it is. He can no longer plague us with his presence. And then he looks over and he says, "Where is our priest? Where's Boethus?"
Okay, I've been standing off to the side and conferring with Henry, and basically having a battlefield confessional, and kind of just bearing my soul to him. And when I hear my name called, I'll walk up to him and kneel before him.
Yeah,
I say, "My Lord."
And Henry will have accompanied you, and the Lord looks to you and he says, "Brother Boethus, I find you seem to have been the source of much of our troubles, but then again, you are not the first to have been deceived by that bastard Falcone. Seems I'm in a forgiving mood today." If
my eyes barely go up, and because my head's dropped in shame, but it seems to be balanced on the fact of the forgiveness. I've asked the Lord to forgive me, my Lord, and I humbly ask that you do but the same. And my will is not my own any longer. I don't have aspirations for or care for, and then I almost kind of build up like to fall back into like almost a rage at myself and my memories, and then I kind of drop down and my hands fall on the ground and start sobbing and say, don't have any aspirations for myself, greed or rising up within stature amongst my, and I bite down on the word, my brethren. I only hope that they forgive me too. And then I'll start crying and sobbing and your mother, my Lord. And, my arms buckle and I sink down a little bit lower. But she was, and I can't even get the words out. I'm sobbing so much, she was, if with your leave and Father Henry, I would like to tend her grave in yonder abbey. And they kind of raised my finger and pointing toward Dredgewater, where I once tended the orchards and the gardens there. And I shall tend to her too, and all the people of Dredgewater, should they have me. And then I'll break down again. So it's like in a round of all these people, I'm making a confessional.
Yeah.
That the deeds I've done have been horrendous.
And at mention of his mother, several different emotions played across his face, right? I mean, there was certainly the love that anyone would have for their mother, even one such as her, but there was also that disappointment and that sense of rejection, and this all plays across his face, but it lands on this. I mean, it's clearly he's angry, and he looks to you and he says,
now I've hung my head low, it's almost for the sword strike myself.
Right.
But if you, I try to follow the will of the Lord, but you, Lord, if your will does not see fit, I will go to my Father, to our Father in heaven, I'll say, with a clear conscience, and I'll drop my head even a little further, and but I believe that I can be of some benefit while I still draw breath, if you allow, and then I'll hang there waiting for the judgment.
Yeah, and he'll with a lot of venom in his voice will say, I do not possess as much grace and forgiveness as our Lord does, and I do not forget and easily forgive the sins of those that did me wrong. I've shown grace by letting you live, but no, I will not allow you to tend to my mother's grave. And then he says, no, you will be stripped of your... And as he's starting to do this, Henry actually says, my lord, I'm sorry, but you forget yourself. You have no authority over the church. You are but a humble servant. But I will make sure that he is dealt with as he should be, as God deems appropriate. And then before Westweld can try to reject that or whatever, Henry turns to you and says, you will do penance. First, a year of, and he said, you will swear a vow of silence for at least 1 year, for your forked tongue has led to much of this. You will tend the orchard as you have, but you will not be given any favor. You will attend mass, you will attend the orchard, and that is what you will do. And after a year's time, if the Lord sees fit, then you will be judged accordingly. For our Lord, and
Okay.
he looks up, is gracious and good. But I will ensure that your mother, Lord Westweld, has a proper Christian burial. And Westweld, he just kind of shrugs at this point. He's like, whatever.
And
And
I'm
yeah.
sobbing, and then I drop, into silence, and
Sure.
you see people see me shake my head while I'm
Yeah.
still down like that,
Yeah. And then I think perhaps at that point, Janus had finally brewed the tea and was able to, and he drinks it. And shortly thereafter, he starts to feel a lot better. I mean, it takes a little while, but he starts to become, his foul mood sort of lightens, and he starts to become more like the man that you knew. And so, with that, the most immediate, the sort of in the immediate, hold on, let me get my words right. We're going to kind of shift time here. The forces of Dredge County were victorious over those of Howardtown. The Lord Westweld Washburn became more powerful than his family had ever been before, and it had become so well thought of that that he actually makes a pilgrimage to the holy city of Rome to meet the Pope, because to tell him of the deeds of Bishop Aethelwold and to request that he be canonized, which is granted. The Pope also basically makes or tells Washburn that he will now be the favored son of the Pope in England, and he dubs him with a new name, Alfredus Magnus, and that he will be given basically control. He will be the king of what they're going to call Mercia now. And so now there will be 3 kingdoms in England. Sort of the Kent and the lowlands to the south, East Umbria, where, or Eastumberland, and then Northitch to the north. And in those middle lands will be Mercia, and they will be ruled over by now King Alfred. As the months and the year, and it's about a year or two that will pass, he starts to consolidate his base of power, and he moves from the small sort of backwater town, right, of Dredgetown, to the a larger city, Winchester, where he establishes his capital. And he is over maybe a year or two, through some dealings, both martial and political, he manages to gain some of the land from Eastumberland, and he takes a little bit of the land to the north as well, and renames his kingdom Wessex. And at that point, Janus of London and Brother Boethus will definitely go down in the annals of history as being instrumental in the beginning of the formation of Ungland as a hopefully united kingdom under the rule of one king. But there's still a lot of work to do. What I would like for you gentlemen to do is let me know in, say, the 2 to 3 years after this, after Wessex is established and King Alfred is there, his eldest son named Edward, right, is growing, and he's trying to consolidate his power. What role does Janus of London play first? How is he involved in this? What does he do within those
Janus,
years?
after the battle, would have said his goodbyes to Yami and it would have taken the vows. So he would have sworn a life of poverty, would have given his riches away, and he would have taken the vows. So he would be by year 3, maybe a low-level brother or acolyte in the church.
Right.
Yeah,
Nice. I love it. Giving up his wealth and prestige for
as he is he has seen too much.
Yeah.
To live the secular life now. Yeah.
Fantastic. And what about Boethus?
Boethus would have spent that year, much of it, obviously in silence, the first year in contemplation and meditation, since he was still allowed to take care of the orchards and whatever. So this was actually a good comparative place to be, and go back over what influenced him and think about on Falcone as well as Aethelwold. Afterwards, he would have remained more of a silent man, where before he was a talker. Anytime that he would be there more, he would have tended the pigeons there, but not with any kind of kind of malicious intent or talking back and forth. But anyway, just out of something to do. But he would have beckoned and talked to Henry at some point about being given leave to go on a personal crusade to the place of St. Aethelwold's after his canonized, is where he was crucified, to get a true bit of the cross and bring it back to Dredgewater for the church. Yeah. So that's what he would, but otherwise he mainly is a very astute and good scribe in the church, and a good worker for the people, and a trusted monk. But he didn't want to ascend beyond his post there. But he takes every advantage to remember what was stated to him. Yep. Awesome. But I think he would be a trusted person within the abbey there.
Yeah. And so we'll end with this. As Brother Boethus has been given some redemption and a chance to earn the trust and the favor of now the King Alfred, right, and of the church, you go on this pilgrimage to Northitch city, which has been renamed York, and to acquire the cross that Brother Aethelwold was crucified on, and your mission is successful, whatever. But as you are preparing to head back south to return this holy relic to the city of Wessex, to Winchester, you are approached by a soldier of the Northich soldier, bloodied, nearly dead on his feet, and asking for your forgiveness and not for your forgiveness, asking for healing and whatever. But he says that he's got a message for you, and that you must let the king know that the men of Northich were unsuccessful in their attempt to overthrow Ivar in Ayerland, and so they now fear retribution, as Ivar is likely to head south. And so with that, the curtain will close, and we will say that is the conclusion of this
Chronicle,
the Saints and Sinners Chronicle.
Hopefully
opening up for another chronicle where perhaps we can see the more geopolitical ramifications.
Yeah, we can retire Janus and Boethus.
Yeah, perhaps. So with that, I want to thank you guys, obviously, and I want to
great, man.
Thank everyone
who
might have watched this, and I think we'll hang out for a little bit, have some banter, and just chill. But with that,